the ultimate, the last one. We're still struggling with it today. We've concluded we got it. This must be the kingdom. We've invented democracy. Now, democracy is still the best idea. But I told you tonight, I want to show you that it can't work. Because you cannot replace the kingdom of God with anything. Let's take a look at democracy very quick. This man's best idea, and I must confess it's a pretty good idea. Democracy is man's ultimate fear of himself. Put it another way. Democracy is the manifestation of man's distrust of himself. Think about it. Okay, you know what they call it? They call it democracy. Democracy have checks and balances. But why I need checks and balances? Because I can't check you if I can't balance you. Democracy is the ultimate manifestation of distrust. If your theory is built on distrust, how can it work? Because I don't trust you with power, I can make sure I hold it and loan it to you for 4 years. And if I don't like you after 4, I take it back. Or maybe even before the 4. We have a referendum. I don't trust none of y'all, so just in case you begin to get a little bit high-minded, I'm going to withdraw my power, which I loan you in a vote. In other words, it's a manifestation of distrust, which, you know, is the opposite of love. Democracy is probably best described as prenuptial agreement. You all know what that means, right? I love you, I can marry you, but just in case you ain't getting my car, my house, my land, my real estate, you just in case. But I love you now, you know, I love you. It's the ultimate prenuptial system. That's our best. It's built on some things: individual freedom, self-determination, just society, protection of individual rights, a civil society, the rule of law, civil rights. These are nice words, huh? Are they working? No. Well, this is our best. They better work. No human have yet invented a more reasonable system of government than democracy. Democracy was invented by the Greeks, not by the Bible. Plato and Aristotle and Socrates perfected democracy. It was introduced by the Greeks. The Romans tried to implement it, but they converted themselves into a kingdom. Democracy, when you think of rule of law, it depends on who makes the law. Am I right? That's why they're changing the laws now. Rule of law is subjective. Since we create the law, we could change it. Matter of fact, let's take a look at some of the weaknesses of democracy, because you see the kingdom of God is completely opposite. Democracy, number one, rule of majority. That's dangerous, huh? Yeah. Because the majority could be wrong. Yeah. Depending on who defines wrong. Hey? So is it wrong for a man to marry a man? Well, if the majority say it's not wrong, it's not wrong. So right is a matter of majority, not a matter of conscience. This is disaster from the beginning. Number two, democracy deals with protection of the minority. Okay, first of all, the majority rules the place, but you gotta make room for the minority to be protected. Why? Because the minority can't trust the majority. So the majority has to protect the minority, even though they disagree with the minority who disagrees with the majority. So you have this tension of fear and distrust. This is the best we came up with. And then democracy has to do with discrimination, eh? You got to discriminate in democracy. We talk about equal rights. Come on. Democracy is filled with racism. It's our best. Democracy is filled with corruption, but it's our best. Democracy is filled with capitalism, which capitalizes on the weak to benefit the strong. You got to have a poor market to have a rich company. This is why you send your companies to India, because they're poor people. You could make them work the same amount of hours for $1 that you make a guy work for 20. It's capitalizing on the weak. That's democracy. It's completely opposite to Jesus' teaching. Be good to the poor, give to the poor, help to the poor. Democracy says, no, use the poor to make yourself richer. It's democracy. So they say things like, we are losing jobs to China, Mexico, India. So what you going to do about that? I own the business. What you going to do about that? I have a right to be, remember, I'm a minority. You got to protect my right to take my business out of the country. We're confused, huh? I'm trying to show you that man's search for this utopia is fruitless, useless, and it's an exercise in frustration. When you leave here, I want you to leave here never being impressed again by any ism, communism, socialism, any kind of crazy, like aristocracy, democracy. You need to leave here understanding the kingdom is it. That's it. That's my point. Because as long as you think that there's another alternative, you will never sell the kingdom as the pearl.
Right. That's good.
Democracy has inequality. Every democratic society, come on, talk to me. You live in one. Oh my God. You got ghetto and high society in the same island. We call it equality. I have another word for it. Inequality. Rich versus the poor. Democracy. Abuse of privilege. You give a guy power in democracy, he starts getting stuff under the table. Most people in democracy, when they pursue power in politics, that's not for service, that's for self-service. It's for privilege abuse. It's the heart of man that's desperately wicked. And whatever position you put that heart in, it'll manifest itself. Whether it's in the pulpit of a church, or in the halls of justice, or in the assembly halls of government, that heart will manifest. And this is why the kingdom of God begins. Create in me a clean heart first. Because if the heart ain't right, no position will protect it. It simply will expose it. So here's what I call democracy. The freedom experiment. It's an experiment. It's good material, eh? That's what it is. I did research on this stuff in college, outside of college. I read books after books, and I'm getting more and more just depressed over man's feeble attempt to fool himself that he is smart. We ain't that smart. No wonder why God says, you are all like sheep, gone astray, each one to his own way, and therefore the Lord had to put all of that on himself and just fixed it with his death. Here's something. The democratic ideal, here's what this is what they talk about. They say, democracy is about pursuing personal freedom. Yes? Pursue your dreams, maximize your potential. We believe in a free society. Okay. What's the result? Here's some words. Jealousy, suspicion, competition, prejudice, neglect, disparity, haves and have-nots. These are results of the freedom society. In other words, the experiment has failed. Now, don't get me wrong. Democracy is the best we've come up with. But it is just as bad as the others. I heard a term in the last few years, democratic dictatorship. Interesting term, right? Depends on who got the seat. But the experiment, we've become imprisoned by our own pursuit for freedom. And so I present to you tonight, therefore, a simple conclusion, the source of our desire. And write this down real quick. Why man is searching. Here's why man is searching. Because all humans want the same thing. I beg you to understand, you and I are the same. But here's the problem. We are looking for the same answers to the same questions, but we use different routes and systems to try and find them. This is where we get this idea about Unitarianism. You know, where all religions are right, all philosophies are right. This idea comes from that concept that, well, since we're all the same, we are using different ways to get to the same place.